Aloha. With this build, I wanted to do a review. I'm hoping it'll be quick. I don't know, every time I get started, it'll be like 2 hours later. But I don't want to do a review on the Black Panther movie and just share what I've seen and have been seeing in the so-called Marvel universe. I pretty much already broke down the comprehensive overview of like how I feel about the infrastructure of the Black Panther movie, the Marvel universe, and Hollywood itself in the previous video. But with this video, I wanted to focus on the specifics of the movie and really get into what a lot of people are already seeing. A friend of mine sent me a video the other day, or 3 videos the other day, where the builds were basically exactly the same thing that I was saying in the video before I even saw the movie, and in our conversation that we had later on. And it wasn't a surprise. There is nothing to expect for the better in relation to the world of mind control. That entire system, Hollywood, politics. If you're believing, like I said in the last video, if you're believing that the Black Panther movie is designed for you, you are hopelessly enslaved. You have, and this is one of the big things that are out there, is that there's so much hype going on in reference to, oh, this is an all-black cast, it's an all-black movie, and something's wrong with this. You have some people talking about that, and in reference to that, people miss the whole point of realizing what's the opposite perspective of that. What's going on in reference to the industry itself. If you have people so far gone in their own comfort zone that stems from this colonial mind control program of manifest destiny, massacring and destroying people and taking their lands and calling that human nature, and then going into the scientism community in the university system, and then figuring out some kind of theories that, like the theory of evolution and the heliocentric theory and all these theories that back up emptiness. So we're talking about something that is meant to be a distraction, and the other side of that is to realize that people are celebrating this, not only falling for it and just kind of watching the movie and just being like, oh, that was a good movie, you know, because there's that, like the middle ground, that's like the medium. But the extreme is you have people dressing up in damn costumes going to this movie as if it represents, as if it's for them. That's basically like going to Donald Trump's house and feeling proud of yourself because, you know, yeah, that's he did something for you or something like that, like, or being proud of your so-called first black president. These are all mind control programs. We don't differentiate between them because we think they're separate. If you have been so compartmentalized, one part you've been compartmentalized in your reality to where you don't see the things that connect all the things, the other things that maintain this structure. The other thing is we don't understand what to do with that information, even if we did connect all the dots. So, I mean, there's so many different things connected to that. And then you have people who are totally distracted, and then you have people who are just totally hopeless. They don't even want to. Like, I run into people like that all the time. They're like, you know what? I can't talk about that. They literally have a governor in their consciousness that shuts down and says, I can't do this anymore. I just live over here. I just leave that over there. And that's basically like the same mentality that I've been explaining in reference to the New Age programming. You have people who are living in that, oh, well, I'm over here and they're over there kind of mentality in the New Age community, living that way in the business community, or so-called successful American dreamers. And then you have people who are just completely oblivious to what's going on within the mind control program. So in reference to this celebration, like I said in the last video, the celebration is like the people in so-called power right now, that they in reference to the haves and have-nots program, they're laughing at people right now. This is a joke. This is a joke. Millions and millions of dollars going where? Not into your community, getting sucked out of your community. There's one thing, and going into the system that benefits off of mind controlling you. That's two things. The third thing, you have children who are being mind controlled. I saw an Instagram little movie clip of two kids staring at a Black Panther poster right before their parents or whoever was taking them to the movie, saying, "Oh, I'm this one and I'm that one. Oh, you can be that one. I'm this one and I'm this." And then the writing on the top of the video was something like, "This is why we need representation in Hollywood." This is how fucking far we are from realizing like our responsibility to our own kids. It's not Hollywood's responsibility. This is where the laziness program comes in, and the ignorance program comes in, and the Stockholm program comes in, Stockholm syndrome. Loving your enslaver, like totally loving it. So that is a good example of what so-called white people live with and as every day when they don't say anything about the very nature of the industry and the systems themselves. See, it's put on blast when so-called black people do it, because it's very obvious. Like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? But what we tend to not pay attention to are the other sides of the story, where people are, you know, quietly benefiting from this, quietly loving this ignorance, quietly just soaking up all of this nonsense and laughing in people's faces. This shit is sick. So you have percentages of people who are gonna be completely oblivious to what's going on, and you're gonna have people who are gonna be tuned into what's going on and deciphering it, and then you have people right in the middle who are just gonna be bouncing back and forth, playing the game, sometimes, you know, acting like they know, sometimes playing that like they don't, and whatever, everything in between. Point being is that Hollywood, politics, the colonial industry itself is basically a Eurocentric mind control conditioning program. This is what Hollywood is in politics, and this is why I don't get confused, because I know exactly why people don't comment on this stuff, but it's still shocking is a better word. It's still shocking at this day and age of all this information, how people maintain, how people stay silent on these issues. These so-called truthers out there. Look at Hollywood. They literally had a problem where the Oscars was whitewashing the Oscars. That's a problem out there. And it's not a problem that just came up in the Oscars in 2017. It's a problem that stems all the way back from the very beginnings of Hollywood. This is an algorithm. It's an alchemy. It's a science that people choose not to speak on, still calling themselves truthers. What's the difference between lying to you about the nature of who you are as a human being and lying to you about the nature of the experience and where you live on this so-called globe Earth? There's no difference. They're at least equal. And in my eyes, lying to you about your human story is actually more detrimental to the entire experience than lying to you about the Earth itself. It's just one mechanism to keep you away from your true humanity, to keep you away from your connections to nature and each other and so on and so forth. Watch when all this stuff comes out more in the so-called mainstream and people start talking about the so-called flat or the not globe Earth. Watch when people start talking about this, how you'll see how enslaved people still really are. You're gonna see it because they're gonna have their flat Earth birthday cake. They're gonna have their flat Earth celebration, and then what? You're gonna see them be exactly the same. Yes, there will be small percentages of people who are gonna say, "I'm gonna take this a step further. I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna say this about this." But that will be the small majority. That'll be the minority, because we're not looking at the individuals themselves. Meanwhile, the mind control system makes its money off of focusing on the individuals themselves. See, they distract you. It distracts you with the topics that they present to you. The Black Panther movie is a topic of discussion, of distraction. Flat Earth, in my opinion, is a topic of distraction. Once you hold it next to all of the other mind control programs that relate to the human experience, that relate to the infrastructure of this system getting the power to lie to you in the first place. How did they get to that power to mind control your kids with a Black Panther movie and create an entire Marvel universe? How did they get to that power to mind control you as an adult, to go into their indoctrination systems and lock yourself into their paid slave programming? How did they get that power to create those institutions? Where did all this stuff come from? What was its intentions back in the day? Not that long ago, so-called black people couldn't even be in the same school. They couldn't even be in the same school. Couldn't drink out of the same water fountain as so-called white people. If you don't see that as a mind control program that still exists today in many different ways, mostly subconsciously, where this stuff is affecting people and they don't even know it. This is where a lot of people act like racism doesn't exist, or they try to water it down and say, well, all white people were, affected too, were enslaved too. You're missing the whole point. I'm not talking about the specifics of one thing that's going on. I'm talking about the psychology, the science, the alchemy of every single thing that is going on. See, when I mention something like the Black Panther movie or slavery or whatever it is, people with their own focus have to take a piece of what I'm talking about. They don't look at it in all of it, as all of it. They mostly take a piece of it, take the one little thread, and then share with the comment section how they feel about that one little thread. It's not about that one little thread. When I reference so-called white people and slavery and colonialism and all this other stuff, this is not to point the finger directly only at white people and what they have gone through. It's to put light on the situation that very definitely does include the white supremacy program, but it is in no way limited to that mentality. Yet you have people, instead of doing the research on all of the 90th percentile of the information that I'm talking about, they get defensive. They wanted to protect their own perspectives, don't want to challenge themselves to change and see something from a higher scope, and really just kind of just reassure themselves that what they're thinking and how they feel is perfectly okay. I mean, in actuality, it is. But if you call yourself a truther and you call yourself, oh yeah, well, I'm doing this and I'm changing and evolving and all this other stuff, like a lot of people who are watching or stumble across these videos do, they don't, or say they do. That's the whole point. There's a difference between saying something and doing something. But most people get on this internet. That's what this internet thing does. This social media thing does. It empowers people commercially. You can't get out of that. I mean, it's just like creating an ego. Just imagine somebody pump somebody else's head up for 40 years. But the individual didn't really do anything to earn that kind of focus. They've just been pumped up forever. In a sense, they've been gaslit forever. another version of gaslighting, like the other side of gaslighting. It's really a complex thing that's going on here. And in this day and age, I can't really see how people, I mean, it's not that much of a surprise to me, but I guess it's still difficult at times to see people still falling into that. I mean, people that are close to me too, I mean, still falling for that cartoon comic book bullshit. You would think people would, do that, but do the research or do something about it, but that's just not the case. We kind of see things from how we're doing what we're doing. A lot of the times we don't get a chance to go out there and really kind of take a poll on, in a sense of what's going on with our friends and family members from the heart. Like, what's really going on? Like, I care about my friends. I care about my friends' kids. I care about my family members. This is why I do this. So their kids and their kids' kids and their kids' kids' kids can have some kind of interpretation of what's going on outside of the mind control program that's being pumped through all these Black Panther movie posters and the movies in Hollywood and the politics and the so-called conspiracy theory world, alternative news world, like all this shit. It's a gauntlet that leads directly to disease, cancer, sickness, death. And then they're making movies laughing in people's faces. The government moved all this drugs and guns from South America all over the world into the inner cities. You can't tell me that's not on purpose. And they put it in a movie. They put Tom Cruise on the screen, on the poster. They show you the criminal actions of these people. And this is the thing, just like the Black Panther movie was a litmus test, and the SpaceX so-called launching of that car in space was a litmus test. Well, the movie like Tom Cruise did, where he was talking about the drugs being funneled through Arkansas during Bill Clinton being the governor of Arkansas, the governor of Arkansas. That was a litmus test. They put it in the movie. It's available to everybody to see how dumbed down people will be. People are not going to talk about that. They're not going to talk about this. They want to be entertained. This is a proof that the Colosseum mentality, the bread and circus mentality, is very successful. Extremely successful. So successful that it has generations locked down. From the oldest of the oldest elders talking about, I can't wait to go see that Black Panther movie. It's about time. It's about time. We've had some representation in Hollywood. It's about time. The oldest of grandmas and grandpas talking like that. And then you got the youngest of the kids who are doing the same thing. And then you got the parents right in the middle of both of them, egging both of them on. Yeah, grandma, me too, I'm happy. You want to go see it with me? Okay, let's go see the Black Panther movie. Yeah, we're coming together. We're doing this. This is so great for black people. And then you got the kids with the parents. Can I go see the Black Panther movie? Yeah, let's go see it. It's about time we had some representation in Hollywood. You asking for your slave master. Asking the slave master to give you the whip so you can whip yourself under the guise of entertainment, under the guise of being woke. I even heard, I think his name was Red Pill, did a video. I couldn't even finish the video. It was his review of the Black Panther movie. And it was just this same whole thing. It was just like, yeah, it's finally get this representation. It was a good movie. It was a good. No, there's a difference. There's no good movie. This movie was nothing but mind control. Nothing else. Yes, you can respect the artistic nature of it and the colors and the research that went into showing a lot of the culture in the movie. But that shit's all watered down as soon as you tie it into a Marvel universe. And that's exactly what the intention was, and is with the entire Marvel universe, especially with the Black Panther movie. The last time I saw this, the same thing that happened in the Black Panther movie was in the Civil War movie. And it was funny because I think the dude Bucky, the dude with the metal arm, there's a spoilers alert in here. Spoilers going to be coming up pretty soon. So if you're worried about all that stuff, then you have been warned. So at the end of the credits, they showed him again, and that like confirmed it to me, because that was the last. They did like two or three. I think it was just 2 after credits sort of little movie clips. The last one was the one I just showed you, where Bucky was in Wakanda and they were trying to bring him back to health and so on and so forth. But so that's what, locked in that whole Civil War mentality. And then before that, the end of the Black Panther movie, after the Black Panther saved the day from the other Black Panther who was talking about, I mean, that I could go into that for another 3 hours about what that whole story was. I don't really want to, because that shit is just disgusting. And the bigger issue and the bigger point with this entire movie, to me, was how the Marvel universe is designed to tie in your powerlessness and hopelessness, not only to make you powerless and hopeless, but to make the system powerful and make you hopeful in the system of control and dominance and haves and have-nots. And the proof of this is, it doesn't even matter if you're a damn superhero. You still have to answer to the so-called powers that be on this earth. In the Civil War movie, you had Team Captain America and Team Tony Stark. Yeah, I think Team Captain America and Team Tony Stark. So the Avengers split up between the teams and started fighting each other in this civil war. And who was in charge? Who was the middleman in between the Avengers, these superheroes from other damn realms and dimensions and so-called universes or planets, so-called planets and universes and all this other stuff? These are like Thor was there. I mean, all these things that are going on. It subconsciously, what you're being programmed to do is to say to yourself, subconsciously and consciously, it doesn't matter what I do. Just like what Hollywood tells to so-called minorities or melanated people across the world, it doesn't matter what you do. You'll never be as famous or successful, as relevant, not only in society, but in humanity. You won't be relevant in humanity. You'll only be relevant in humanity up to a certain point, because the peak of this successful reality, or whatever they're trying to promote with Hollywood, politics, the education system, and so on and so forth, both in the past, the present, and the future, you can't be truly accepted or successful or anything unless you are so-called white or of some kind of European descent. See, this is a huge, huge mind control program that is very obvious in Hollywood. It's extremely obvious in the politics. It's very obvious in the public education system. These are some huge, huge parts. And basically, it's the meat and potatoes that holds the cosmology mind control programs together. And since people are so focused on externalizing what they're researching and externalizing their focus instead of internalizing it and then sharing it, we get this information and we share it because that's it. That's it. We don't internalize it at all. We don't take any responsibility for it. We don't tie it into the connections to the past, the present, and future, the soul, the mind, and the body, and the mind control levels on all of those platforms. We don't tie any of that information together because largely the way we think is still very linear. That's the thing. We talk about thoughts, we talk about thinking, but we never really analyze how we think. It's like the difference between thoughts and thinking. Like, you can have a whole bunch of books in your house, but if you're still locked into a program that's just going to maintain your own self-destruction, that knowledge it's not knowledge. It's just stuff. It's not activated. The information doesn't become knowledge until it's activated. You can fill your body in your world, all your bodies in your worlds, with all the knowledge you want. But if you don't work on yourself and analyze yourself, then the knowledge and the information is going to be worthless. You're just going to be feeding your artificial ego forever. And this is the thing that's happening with society as a whole. See, just as much as you can fill your ego with all that knowledge and information, if you don't do anything with it, it's just going to be trash. And that's exactly what it is. So that can happen with an individual. My point is, with the mainstream media is the system that maintains that kind of consciousness for the masses as a whole. It's like a hub for maintaining that kind of those self-destructive mechanisms. And we are so bought into that system, we think the systems that they are promoting, or it is promoting, we think that's our reality. Hence the Black Panther movie being worshipped and cherished and having people dress up like damn Halloween and go to see this movie. So you have all these different kinds of approaches. You have so-called Black conscious community, and within all of these are the spectrums, people who fall completely dead center of it, far to the extreme of the positive and the so-called negative and all this other stuff. With each of these topics, you're going to have people falling somewhere in there. So this is going to be very generalized when I reference like the Black conscious community, the New Age community, the Truther community, and just the status quo mainstream community. Like, I understand how there's a difference between all of the, people who are in that space, and we utilize different learning experience to get to a certain point. I understand that. But in order to help share a perspective of how all of these are the same kind of mechanism, I have to generalize it with examples, of course, to show how all of this is one thing. So you have people in the Black conscious community looking at the Black Panther, talking about, yes, this is a certain sort of, this is supposed to make you feel a certain way, but at the same time, you have people with a huge amount of followers who are just loving it. Yeah, it was a great movie. It's about time we had representation. Is this gonna be the beginning of a Black so-called renaissance in Hollywood, with great Get Out and all this other stuff? You're still playing the game, calling yourself conscious and all this other stuff. Then you have people in the New Age community perceiving stuff like the Marvel universe from the perspective of like the dimensions and the planets and alien beings and superhuman powers relating to our chakras and our third eye and all this other stuff. Super floaty, super ungrounded. Don't give a shit about, what's going on the streets. Don't even think. It's like, oh no, that's their journey. That's their karma. And then tying all of the heliocentric cosmology, making that real. It becomes real because the people who haven't done any of the work for themselves are going to buy into the entertainment mind control program, the gladiator arena. They're getting a lot of the new age community is getting their information in reference to the system, the colonial system of mind control. And then it validates them because the system needs the new age program, the new age community to continue to grow. Because as it grows, when it gets to that certain point, that's when it'll be co-opted, just like the so-called flat earth community. The mainstream mind control consciousness needs the black conscious community to get smarter, to get more enlightened, to be more woke and all this other stuff. It needs it because as it gets more complex, then that means the system can do more. They can put more out there. They can lock those mind control roots and tentacles deeper into your reality, deeper into the reality of your children and their children's future generations on and on and on. So I already pretty much explained the mainstream perspective of how people are seeing this movie, how that's on purpose. I've explained the black conscious community, the new age community, and to close this all out, I just kind of want to ball this all up into the Marvel universe. So like what's going on with the Marvel universe? You've seen all these Marvel universes, you've seen all these movies, all these plots and all this stuff that's going on. What's really going on here? So obviously you have the heliocentric programming of the Marvel universe. That's no different than the new age community and people who are heavily locked into that community. They can't talk about stuff like flat earth because if they do, it will uproot their entire interpretation or belief systems based upon other star systems, and other aliens and dimensions and planets and all this other stuff. That's why that's so important to really rip that stuff apart. But okay, so yeah, the Marvel universe, the heliocentric universe, obviously it's there to turn heliocentrism into a superhero, turn the universe of heliocentrism into something very entertaining. And meanwhile, you're falling for it. You believe in gravity, you believe in the Big Bang, you believe in the theory of relativity, you believe in the evolution theory and all this stuff. You believe in everything that comes out of the university system because the left hand to the university system, which is like Hollywood, they play off of each other. They play hand in hand. So you're going to have all these scientists talking about, just like they're talking about SpaceX, they're going to be talking about, dimensions in reference to CERN and transhumanism, simulation theory, and tie it into like the Marvel universe and Star Trek and Star Wars. This is how they make it real for grown-up children. So the Marvel universe is not only designed to lock people into the heliocentric deception, it's also designed to lock people in to the hopeless and powerless system that tells you, even if you are a superhero, you still have to fall underneath our power grid. The United Nations is more powerful than all of the Avengers and all of the DC universe combined. They all have to answer to the United Nations. So like I was saying in that Civil War movie, the Avengers were split up between Captain America and Iron Man, and the people in between all of that they had to answer to, that the superheroes were scared of, were the United Nations. Can we not see that this is on purpose, that this is a definite mechanism, a mind control to make people think and act a certain way? So what happened in the Black Panther movie? Not even going into the whole plot line. At the end of the movie, what did they do? At the end of the Black Panther movie, after the credits, after you stood up and clapped in the theater and cried and, oh, I'm so happy we're look at my little kid next to me. Oh, feels so good to have representation in Hollywood. Like I said, we're looking at the wrong point. Instead of celebrating the fact that you can see yourself represented in some kind of way based on some shallow bullshit on top of that. You see yourself on the screen and are celebrating it. That's ridiculous. So you have, I said the Civil War, then you have the Black Panther. The Black Panther movie. The end of the movie, Black Panther saves the day. What happens after that? Black Panther takes all the continents that were in charge to the United Nations and tell them, oh, we're gonna be like super involved in what's going on with the world. They're speaking on the microphone of the United Nations. So getting into the plot of the movie, what that does is says the villain in the movie was an individual who was speaking in reference to the melanated people across the earth and what happened across the earth. And it's so deep to go into, and people have already broken this down so much. I don't even want to go into this so much because it's just sick and ridiculous. But basically, I'll try to shrink it down. Basically, they took the Black Panther concept, turned it into a cartoon, made two Black Panthers, one good Black Panther and one bad Black Panther. The bad Black Panther is supposed to represent the radicalized version of the Black Panthers back in the day. So boom, there's one cut in the arterial wound, one arterial wound right there. Because now you're going to Google you're going to Google Black Panther, and the only thing that's going to come up is the Black Panther movie. You're not going to hear about all the actual Black Panthers. You're not going to hear about Stokely Carmichael, Fred Hampton. You're not going to hear about all the people who were in and around the Black Panther community. You're not going to hear about the system itself, like the values, what they were actually speaking in reference to. Not getting into the politics of what happened politically and all that other stuff, but just the point being, what went down, what's going on there. Because in the aftermath, they just took the energy of the Black Panther, just like they did with the Black Panther movie. They took the energy of the Black Panther back in the civil rights, or the Black Panther Party back in the civil rights days, and channeled it into the Civil Rights Act. Just like this Black Panther movie in the Marvel Universe takes all of your energy and your hope and your focus and channels it into the United Nations and channels it into the heliocentric cosmology. That's the science of the mind control. This is a craft. This is why I said we're focusing on the wrong thing, if you're focusing on it at all. Well, for the people who are even deciphering a lot of this information, or other people on the other side who are, feeling like they're represented and all proud of all this stuff, we're missing the point of the fact that if you can at the same moment say that you're having representation, then you can at the same moment say and realize that you haven't been having representation, and that's on purpose. And if you can see that, then you can also see, well, who or what has been having representation? How long? How does that affect us? You can see how the representation affects little black kids, so-called black kids, who are going to see the Black Panther movie. Look at how that happens from one little shitty ass movie. See how empowered they feel, even if it's artificial in that synthetic universe. You see how good people feel from this Black Panther movie? That's one movie. Now look at the industry itself. The entire industry is designed to make so-called white people feel like that in many more complex ways. Feel great about themselves. Amazing. I'm in power. This is amazing. We are the evolutionary peak of humanity. Everything that we have, we've earned. How did you earn it? What did you earn? This is not to put any blame or anything on any of the individuals who are alive today. This is to talk about the origins of this stuff. This is not to take away for the people who are still benefiting and putting all of that stuff out there as the best. They love this shit. That's not to take away from that. It's just to say, like, if we're going to do anything about this, individually and collectively, you have to go to the origin. You have to go to the infrastructure and start to analyze from that point forward. So from that point forward of the system glorifying itself and celebrating itself at the expense of everybody else, how does that affect people? Well, you have looked back in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s, and even all throughout those decades. Look at how it affected people. People putting up signs on Native American land talking about white neighborhood only, lynching black people, burning black people, dragging people down the street, hanging like doing all kinds of, throwing people, ripping their genitals off, like doing all of these things. Like, what are we not supposed to look at this? This is one thing that so-called white people in the so-called truther community happily ignore. You really think there isn't any kind of side effect? Are we supposed to think these people don't exist anymore? Are we supposed to act like this information doesn't exist anymore? Because we have a Black Panther movie now? Because we all have smartphones? Are we supposed to just forget all this shit that went down? I'm not saying only focus on this. I'm saying at least open the damn door and do something with it. Because this is just one part of all these other programs that are out there. But it's such a huge part in reference to the bigger pictures that people benefit from. People just steer completely away from it. And then at the extreme start to demonize people who are starting to bring light to this information. And if the bridge doesn't get, if this divide doesn't get of information, of acknowledgement of this information and research of this information, if this divide doesn't get bridged in some kind of way through the individual, then you as an individual, you will have some problems, whether you see it now or whether you see it later. And then the society will be a reflection of that. It's not gonna go away. All of the mentalities that added up to how so-called white people acted in the 20s, 30s, and 40s literally could not play baseball in the league, couldn't play any sports, couldn't eat in certain places, couldn't use a bathroom, couldn't drink water. That is a mind control program. No different than all the false flags and all the bullshit that's going on today. How the fuck can you call yourself a truther and because you're talking about contemporary truthful information? The truth isn't based upon your clock, your little piddly ass life, your little 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old ass. Truth is all encompassing, especially of the times. And if you don't do that work, you ain't gonna be doing nothing else, nothing but nothing. You will do more of nothing. That goes back to the difference between filling yourself full of thoughts and actually critically thinking. So this is what this truther community is doing, and it's not based upon, it's not limited to the truther community. What I just explained right now is based upon how human or people think and act. They take one little thing and then you got it, and that's it. No, it's not it. It's one thing. So the same way that in the truther community people act and think a certain way, same thing's happening obviously in the mainstream community, new age community, and the so-called conscious communities. Everything is compartmentalized, and we miss the whole point. Because the system is based upon compartmentalizing your entire reality. So yeah, back to the plot of the movie. They created 2 Black Panthers. Of course they have to demonize. They got to demonize the Black Panther. They got to demonize the so-called black people. And so when they made the villain talk about the colonial universe as if that's the actual bad guy. What did they do with that? They victimized themselves. The United Nations, the forefathers, they are the good guys in reference to the bad guy that is the villain in the Black Panther movie. So boom, there's another mind control program that people don't focus on. Oh, the bad guy's talking about colonizing and the whole thing and this whole thing. He's such a... What people do is they say because he's the bad guy, that information is invalid. It only pertains to somebody who's crazy. If you're talking about colonialism, you're crazy. You're a villain. If you're talking about the attack on the indigenous people across the earth plane, you are a villain. Something is wrong with you. And the superhero is the system itself. And that is backed by the Black Panther superhero himself. And not only him, but his entire nation. It's all on purpose. All of it. So you have that part. Then you have the so-called black guy fighting the other so-called black guy, which is happening on purpose. Just as much as they make you do it in the streets, the Black Panther movie just showed it to you in person. They want you to fight yourself. And this is what's happening on the streets. Most people killing each other than doing anything else in reference to the system. There ain't nothing happening to the system. They put the drugs, they put the guns, they put the psychological drugs, they put the psychological guns into the communities and just watch the show. They sit back and trigger people through the television and social media, sit back and watch the show and profit off of people. It's sick. But that's the way this system runs. That's the way this system makes its money. And when people don't reference this information, they don't talk about it, so-called truthers are still not talking about it, it just gets worse. And the system gets stronger. You vest all of your eggs in the one basket of so-called flat earth or Pan-Africanism or blue avians coming from the new age, sphere being alliance, community, and all that other bullshit. You vest your energy in all that shit, you're going to get exactly what you asked for, which is ain't a damn thing. Nothing. Something to distract you. So you have the so-called black on black fighting. You have the demonization of the Black Panthers, the demonization of the individuals who are speaking in reference to the colonial mind control program and the white supremacy program. You have the channeling of everything into the United Nations. You have the distracting of the sheep who are just going to buy in to whatever the shepherd tells them to think and act. They're going to follow the wolf. They ended with the wolf. The last, after the credits finished, the last credits was the wolf. The wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. The wolf, this is what Bucky represented at the end of the Black Panther movie. The wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. And he's all reformed now. He's all trustworthy. He's not only nice and for the Marvel Universe now, but he's also part of the Wakanda. Like, you get more street cred when you got the Wakanda, the Wakanda nation on your side. So that's how this program is working. So everything in between was just a distraction. All of it is just movie magic. It just makes you think and act a certain way. And it's geared towards the kids. And that's the worst part. That's the worst part, where I don't see where people aren't seeing what's wrong with this. The worst part is you have grown adults. See, shrink it down to a little thing, like in your house. Some grown adult knocks on your door. They come into your house and they have a movie to play. They say this movie is the best movie ever. And it's for your kids. They put the DVD or whatever in the TV, and your kids, they tell you, put your kid in front of this movie and watch that movie. And you say, okay. And your kid gets up and says, I love it. It's amazing. Da, 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 da. Just like all these cartoons. And you, what are you going to do? You're going to feel happy because your kid's happy. And that's what really matters. This is how they mind control and play people. Through you. Through trying to be all nice. Appearing a certain way. How do you think the wolf in sheep's clothing is going to act? It's not going to act like a wolf. Obviously. That's why it's wearing. That's what the sheep's clothing represents. Just like one of you being nice and all that other shit. That's a wolf. It's waiting for the perfect moment to profit the most. It's about timing. So in the meantime, you have to be conditioned and programmed a certain way to get to the point to where they need you to be in order to maximize their profit without you knowing about it. So you have all those different aspects of the Black Panther movie, and it all boils down to these few things that I wrote down just so I wouldn't forget them, because I spoke about it in reference in the last video and in conversations and so on and so forth. But what it really boils down to is, this is a mainstream mind control program on society. Another part that was in there was the slave trade hoax propaganda, where the so-called villain referenced the slave trade, I think 2 or maybe even 3 times, talking about, I know when he killed himself, he was talking about, yeah, it's better to be dead than be enslaved. It's better to be dead than like his ancestors who jumped off the boat before they got to the Americas. So there goes another mind control program that keeps the kids separated. Keep in mind, this is programming for kids. You feel more deeply when you realize that this is geared towards children. And grown children too, but specifically children. The innocent ones who are just going to soak this up. And those parents who are themselves largely a lot of times, they're also children who are just going to make these children think and act a certain way. So you have the slave trade hoax propaganda. Then you have the savior worship. This is what's going on with the entire Marvel universe and comics and the Western civilization as a whole. This is why they use the Jesus programming. He's your savior. The saviors of today are Superman, Batman, Iron Man, and Black Panther. They're all out there to externalize your responsibility to this earth, what the system is doing to your children. And you're so bombarded by distraction and work and all this other stuff, you're not going to do anything or say anything or even think about it, because it hurts too much to change, to think about this stuff. So you have the savior worship, which is amplified by mainstream religions, Hollywood, politics, saying God bless America, God bless our troops, and all this other stuff. You have those programs that are running 24/7, and in this movie it was heavy duty. So not only do they make you worship a particular savior, and that savior, the Black Panther of this movie, is channeled all his energy into the United Nations. So you're not liking the Black Panther, you're loving the United Nations. You're loving the mind control programs of the colonial universe. That's what you're really doing. But since you can't think past step 1, you focus all of your information or your energy on the subject of representation. And Mind you, I know also for yourself, and I also know that Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, they are all putting information out there to make people think and act a certain way. They're gonna make you see the images where people are dressing up because they want you to dress up to go see that movie. They're gonna put the images and the information about people buying tickets. Like, I think I saw something about Kendrick Lamar bought 3 theaters and bought them out just to have the kids go watch this movie. So you have not only the Savior program that keeps certain people being super strong and super savior-like, but you have your own savior who ain't worth a damn. The Black Panther, his character in that movie, they killed his character. He's dead. He was strong. He was stronger in those other movies. But his movie, he was a little bitch about everything. That's what it boiled down to. It was just Wakanda, just take care of our own little stuff. It's what the system wanted you to think and be like. So they created a divide formally. That's what the plot did. It created a formal divide in the so-called black community. And just like the SpaceX stuff and the litmus test overall, like I was saying before, the Black Panther movie as a litmus test is designed right now. You better believe that they're running the numbers on how many people are talking about how this was so much bullshit and how many people are totally buying into it. They're looking at the numbers. Oh, the polls are coming in. Yes to mind control. No to mind control. Yes is teetering at around 70%. And no is teetering around 30%. It's actually probably flipped and worse than that. It's probably 30% people who are just like, yeah, I love this movie, and or like it's probably actually more like 80-something% people talking about, yeah, I love this movie, and 15% talking about, oh yeah, this is mind control. It's probably being generous. But you have to know that there are people and computers in little cubicles somewhere analyzing the statistics of hashtags on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and all the video likes and shares. They're analyzing all this information, cataloging it, and seeing you with that information, they're seeing what their next move should be, how they should write the script for the next mind control Black Panther movie, how they should adjust the scripts for the next Marvel Universe movies. So you have that going on, definitely going on. And people can't connect the dots with the fact that those are the same people who made this damn movie. So you have the savior worship, the savior propaganda. You have the man-child culture building. You have this is like the WWE, the World Wrestling Federation, or WWF. You have all these people who are watching wrestling like it's real. You know, loving Wakanda and all this other stuff as if it's real. You don't have to do anything about it. See, this is another one of the main things in there. Just like kids act a certain way, you don't actually have to do anything because they've represented you for you. They've given you your superhero. Just like politics and politicians, you didn't have to do anything about the injustices of this entire nation when they gave you your first black president. You didn't have to do anything because you were so dumbed down and accepting of this reality and powerless because of the programming, like I referenced earlier, of the opposites of how certain people are brought up while other people's are brought down. You don't have to actually do anything when you're brought down so low because the system plays the game for you. And that's it. That's all you have to do. When you're enslaved that deeply, you don't have to do anything more. That's the man-child culture. Get a big loud motorcycle, get a big loud truck, get yourself a little rice rocket, stick a big old muffler on there so everybody can hear you, put some big speakers in your car. Man, you're successful. You did it. Congratulations. So you have the man-child culture building. This is what the Black Panther movie did. All these things that I'm listing off, these are what some of the main things that I'm seeing that the Black Panther movie did to people and is doing. It also distracts people from, like I said earlier, the Black Panther Party, the values of history. You also don't look at the people who were falsely imprisoned through the Black Panther Party from COINTELPRO. The government and Hollywood and the university system, this is all one entity. You see them as separate, you're part of the problem. You celebrate this stuff that's coming out of that system, you're part of the problem. There ain't no ifs, ands, or but about it. There ain't no in between about it. If you understanding the origins, the infrastructure of this system, ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You are part of the problem if you're protecting this bullshit. Celebrating all these superheroes. So what the Black Panther movie does is makes you celebrate a synthetic universe, a fictional universe, and you miss out on the real universe. So there's no information when you Google Black Panther Party. You're not going to hear about COINTELPRO and the government getting in and taking people out. You're not going to hear about what Stokely Carmichael and A-Trap Brown were talking about. You're not going to hear about any of that information. You're not going to hear about the Black Panthers in Oakland, or the Black Panthers being predominantly women, 70% women, in reference to the men that were projected into your reality by the media. So you won't look at what the values really were with that system. You won't look at what that group and that consciousness was really talking about. So obviously the Marvel Universe locks in the heliocentric deception, makes people beg for their slave masters to show them representation in a culture that doesn't care about them at all. And it just makes people lock themselves into a cartoon universe, dumbed down completely. This is the Black Panther movie is a version of being dumbed up. This is where all this representation and black power and all this stuff comes from. It's not black power. You ain't getting no black power for the Marvel Universe, you ignorant ass motherfucker. You talking about white power. That's what that is. Dressed in so-called black garb. That's what the Black Panther movie was and is. That's what the entire system is. Takes everything. So once we see all of these subjects that are in relation to this topic, and then you see how shallow that the information that's being promoted to people that's out there, I mean, it's sickening. It truly is pretty sickening. And just as much as they can get information and use this as a litmus test, this is also a litmus test for people who are who have the mind to think about what's going on and do something about it. Oh shit, I forgot about something I was supposed to do. Oh well. Yeah. It's ridiculous. Where do we go from here? That's the thing. I'm always saying we have to go inward. We have to figure this stuff out from the inside out. From the inside out. Any other way is just going to be easily manipulated, easily co-opted. And then what? What now? So that's pretty much what I have for this video. Like I said, I went deeper into my interpretation of the Black Panther movie before I even saw the movie. It's the same thing. It's the Marvel Universe. You're not talking about the Black Panther movie. You're talking about the indoctrination into a synthetic universe. It's a mirror image of what's happening with the university system. It's the same thing. So it's just a matter of which perspective you want to take. this video, I wanted to share with people at least some of the specifics of the movie that's out there, so they can, for people who are not going to see it, they can at least see what's going down with it and what actually happened. Yeah, because I don't want to hear about people talking about, oh yeah, artistically and this, and it was great, entertaining, all this other stuff. All that shit doesn't matter when you understand that this is mind control for your kids. Like I said, just imagine somebody knocking on your door and then walking in your house and telling you, hey, put your kids down in front of this TV and have them watch this. And then they get all happy and all this stuff and make you happy. And the dude's wearing a suit that says, I'm a mind controller. That's what he's wearing. A suit that says he's a mind controller, and he's there to mind control your kids with cartoons and comic books. This is a upgraded version of cartoons and comic books to make you think and act a certain way through your future generations, through your children. That's the most jacked up shit you can do. It's no different than, it's abuse. You want to take it to the extreme, it's the abuse. This is why they got all these pedophiles in the church and in the politics and in Hollywood. They soak off of this abusive energy. Psychological abusive energy, spiritual abusive energy, and physical abusive energy. There are people who will live at the expense of nature and the people, and they won't give a shit. They have zero concern for the reality. Then you have people who are saying, look, we have to take care of nature. We have to take care of ourselves. These are two extremes that a lot of the so-called truther community is avoiding on purpose, for largely for individual reasons, because they haven't done the individual work. Point being is that you're going to have people who are going to live within the rhythms of life, the rhythms of nature, the rhythms of community, the rhythms of connection. You're going to have people who are going to live in that space. And then you're going to have the opposite of that. They are out there. They are not limited to only white people, so-called white people. Because a lot of the worst so-called white supremacists that are out there, a lot of them ain't even so-called white. They're of some other kind of racial background. And like I said in all these other videos, it's not boiled down to one little thing like that. When I use the terminology like white and black, this is to represent the ideas of mind control that still people are still limiting themselves to. And it's just readily accepted out there. It's all about the physical reality, not even realizing that this is psychological and spiritual warfare. So, yeah, you're going to have what I'm seeing, just like the divide in this movie, of the Black Panther movie, between the so-called superhero and the so-called villain. Both of them being so-called black, and one of them talking about the nature of the system itself, the other one talking about, you know, just going to the United Nations and being cool with them. You're having this divide, and the same divide, that's a mirror image of the divide that is already existing between those who have chosen to live at the expense of nature and those who have chosen and will always choose to live within the rhythms of nature, within the rhythms of community and our people and culture and so on and so forth. The people who largely, whether they know it or not, are separated from nature, they have to demonize your connection with your culture and your people, because largely they don't have any of their own culture and their own people. There is no culture of the the United States of America right now with hot dogs, baseball, and shit. There's no real ass culture that locks you in to the earth and your ancestors. What? The forefathers? The world wars? what is the shit that really so-called brings people together in the if the United States had a culture, and the people of the United States, the colonial United States, what would their culture look like? What would it sound like? What would it feel like? What would it smell like? What would it taste like? What is that? It's garbage. It's nothing. So when you have people who live in that garbage nothingness, anybody who lives connected to their own ancestors, their own culture, that is reminiscent of anything that is deeply rooted and connected to something real, the people within the system of nothingness have to demonize them. Oh, they're just tribalists. Oh, they're racist. Oh, they're just against everybody. You're against humanity. We're all the same, okay? Enough of all this. Get the hell out of my face with all that stuff. Shut your damn mouth and figure out your information before you start telling other people that their information is invalid. Do your work before you start opening up your butthurt ass mouth about how somebody else is wrong about their culture. What is your culture? What are you coming from? What do you represent? But when you have communities like the New Age community and the mainstream community and the alternative, aggressive, progressive community and the Bernies, when you have all these communities, they don't do the work. They just regurgitate the information that their so-called insiders like David Wilcock and Corey Good and all their other, Alex Jones and TYT, all those other people out there, they just regurgitate that information, no different than somebody in the mainstream reality regurgitating Fox News, MSNBC, and all these other, CNN. It's the same thing. It all exists in that world. That's what these movies are based. That's what these movies do in an instantaneous moment. The most artistic way to lock you into those universes is through film. Because you have everything in there. You have nostalgia, you have the vision, you have the plot, you have the sound, you have the mind, you have the storyline of the script, you have the characters relating to the individuals, you have to the people who are writing or watching the movie, you have the way the characters interact with themselves, with the way those characters who are interacting with themselves interact with the society and culture. That's a heavy duty ass mind control program. That's what the Hollywood universe is as a whole. That's the peak of mind controlling out there. This is why you can have people celebrating something as shallow as a Black Panther movie in a Marvel universe. This is that's the litmus test to remind you of how separated from their own universe people really are. No different than SpaceX. No coincidence that this movie came out in the middle of so-called Black History Month, the very center of Black History Month. And nobody's going to talk about that stuff because it's just the same way as nobody's going to talk about so-called Black History Month. You're celebrating bullshit. So that's pretty much what I had for this video. I just wanted to break down a lot of the different perspectives that are relating to this movie in particular, and how I talk about all this other stuff that's on this channel, and how it's all pretty much one story. It's one big storyline, and how it relates to the universe, like your universe. The Marvel universe is a comic book version of the heliocentric universe. It is designed to have the same effect on you and your children. The same thing. It's a cartoon. So yeah, thank you for joining me, and I appreciate your support. Until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.